Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Welcome to the Board of Education meeting. The board has already met in executive session, and we saluted the flag there. So at this point, we're going to do the roll call. Mr. McLaughlin?
That's working. Mr. Byrne? Here. Ms. Schaefer?
Here.
Mrs. Gray?
Here.
Mr. Salmon?
Here.
Mrs. White?
Here.
Mrs. Richmond?
Here.
Mrs. Korn?
Here.
Mr. Markarian?
Here.
Mr. Syatt?
Here.
Mrs. McCune?
Here.
Madam President?
Thank you. I'd like to draw your attention to the statement of public notice in your agendas. It says that there's 2 times for public comment in the meeting. The first time is for public comment on agenda items. So if it's something about the presentations or something on the agenda, you can speak about it at that point. The second public comment is later in the meeting, and that's if you want to talk about something that was not on the agenda. Any comments or questions for other items come then. When the board is listening to public comment, we usually wait and respond at the end of all the public comments. So if you're asking a question and we don't respond, we're not deliberately ignoring you. We're waiting until everyone's done their public comments. And then after we close public comment, sometimes then we can respond to questions. It also says in the statement of public notice that this meeting is being recorded. So just make sure that you are aware of that. Okay, we are now up to our student representative, Maddie.
Hello. Well, today marks the start of the second semester, which for many of us means senioritis. And we've also had the Ridge Dance Showcase happened here maybe last week, and it was very successful and an awesome show. The student government is starting to plan Mr. Ridge, which will occur most likely in March sometime, and you guys will get dates and some advertisements to come. And most importantly, today, some members of the student government and Mr. Krause and fellow administrators went to West Windsor, Plainsboro North, it's a mouthful, and we observed a block schedule. And it was really informative, and it was an awesome visit. And we sort of got a taste. I shadowed a student for the whole day, and we got a taste for what that schedule looks like and how their day-to-day lives work under a rotating drop schedule. And we're going to be visiting another day 1, day 2 schedule, which is a sort of different form of that. And there will be another group going to the 2 different schools to sort of observe the different schedule. And we'll be reporting back with sort of how we feel about that and how we feel that could sort of improve Ridge High School if we could possibly implement that. Any questions?
Any questions for Maddie? Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, what did you think of the schedule?
Okay.
The rotating drop.
So this rotating drop allots for, not to get too into it, but it allots for an hour-long periods. Oh gosh, I forget how many, but they have 1 lunch, which is for the whole school, and that's the part where we sort of run into some problems because we have a lot of kids and a small cafeteria. But the best part about it was the teachers were so engaging. When I shadowed a girl who is in AB Calc, and I am not a math person, and I sat and I listened to an hour-long AB Calc lecture, and I wasn't, super engaged, but the teacher was funny. He had the class laughing, he had them asking questions, writing on the board, sitting down, very engaged and sort of participating. And it wasn't like he sort of wasted the extra 20 minutes that would have been a normal cramming in the lesson and sort of having them pack up and run out the door without any questions answered or anything like that. And that's what really made me hopeful that this could be something really positive for the Ridge High School environment, where we feel students are just sort of getting screamed at, and then they're writing something down and running out the door to the next class and switching gears and 3-minute passing periods from calc to history to science. If that makes sense.
And thank you for alerting us, people up here that have seniors, that the senioritis starts today. And normally the illness sets in somewhat gradually, so I'm hoping it didn't kick in full gear yet. Yeah. Okay, thank you, Maddie. At this time, the board is going to go down and sit in the audience for the presentations. So we're going to go down there and regroup.
Okay, thank you everybody for joining us tonight. My name is Nick Markarian, I'm the superintendent. We have a couple of presentations for you this evening. The first is from Mount Prospect School. They're here to showcase something they're doing with the students called Team Time at Mount Prospect School. So we'll start with the principal, Mrs. Hoseny. Thank you for being here.
Excellent. Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Markarian and the Boards of Education members for letting us present. This is really just a brief, quick snippet of something that we are trying this year, and we're very excited. I would just like to introduce my second hand in command over here, Mr. Pepitone, my assistant principal, and two of our core committee members for SEL. I have Ms. Immerman, who's my PE teacher, and Ms. Kukuro, who is our school counselor, if you guys want to step up a little bit. And then I also have four of our SEL student representatives who are also going to come on, step up. Don't be shy. And that's David, Chan, Zoe, and Nina. And they're also going to participate in some of our, in our PowerPoint presentation. So we're going to just talk a little bit about Team Time. At the end of and throughout the PowerPoint, we'll talk a little bit about our history, but we're actually going into our third year of a journey on our SEL Culture and Climate Initiative that we've joined with the College of St. E's and the United Way. And it has been nothing but an amazing, amazing ride. And over the summer, we had a staff college, which is where a group of teachers come together, and we continue looking and planning and thinking about where we want to go in our third year and starting to prepare for our fourth year. And our goal for this year has been about community and about connection and reflection. And so this is one activity that we came up because we wanted to bring our entire school together. And we're going to tell you a little bit about it. So here we are, Team Time at Mount Prospect School.
Good evening. You might ask, how did we start this adventure or this journey? And one thing we started to take a look at is we started to see trends in behavior, talking about bullying, noticing as far as anxiety and stress as far as students. It was coming out of some of the committee, that we go forth with. Also, research was beginning to show that students just did not have social emotional skills. So we started taking a look at what can we do to help our students and also to help our staff members. And it started looking as though climate and culture would start to be something in which we started to focus on. Research was also coming out with CASEL, which is one of the leading groups as far as social emotional learning in its collaboration of academic social emotional learning. And they started putting out more and more things as far as climate and culture, ways in which schools needed to start taking a look at the way in which we were educating our students. Also, the College of St. Elizabeth, they started reaching out to area districts saying, we're starting the support network. And it was really a great opportunity for schools, no charge or anything, where you could go and they had various speakers on all different kinds of subject areas and things to help start schools thinking about it. And through that, they also had an academy and things, and we started investigating a little bit more, and that's how we got involved with the Climate and Culture Initiative. Also, much of the work that is done with the Climate and Culture Initiative, many of you have probably heard of Maurice Elias. He is one of the leading people, not just within the United States, but in the world, as far as thinking about social emotional learning. He's also been at Capitol Hill, really trying to get things passed, taking a look at schools and so forth. So that's how our adventure kind of started, and Ms. Kukuro will be explaining a little bit more.
Thank you. So what does it look like at Mount Prospect for us? So over the past few years, we have created a staff SEL team that has really kind of created a lot and kind of jump-started a lot of the initiative for us. And you'll see we have over 20 members on that team, where we meet monthly and continue to review the data from our surveys and to assess our areas of need and seeing what we can do to approach those areas. We've also created a student SEL team. Right now we have over 30 students on that team, which is wonderful because we can really hear their voice and get a sense of what it is they feel that they need to make the school feel safe, welcoming, and comfortable. One of our favorite things that they have created through that is what we call open seating, which is every Friday. and they're able to sit wherever they like within the cafeteria, which has been really nice. We're also looking forward to our post-survey, which is coming up this spring, and really kind of evaluating where we have been and where we're going in the future. Okay?
Thank you. So our survey results really identified for us 2 areas of opportunity, one being increasing student voice in our school, and the second being to have a kind of a common language in the way that we address discipline in our school, which isn't uncommon in many schools as we talk to the College of St. Elizabeth, and they have a lot of different experiences with that. So that brought us to this concept of positive discipline, which we felt would really address both of those areas of concern. We started with teachers with this at the beginning of last year, talking about the philosophy and the principles behind it, and we've started to branch that out and share some of this information with our parents and with our students as well in small little mini lessons in the classroom. The goal of this is to eventually get students to be leading class meetings each morning. They're student-centered, they'll be student-driven in terms of agenda items, so we're kind of building the foundation of that as we go. The underlying principle behind positive discipline is really twofold. One, a feeling of connectedness within your school community, and then a feeling of significance. And I would say we probably all feel that way in our jobs, in our homes, that we feel like we're connected to the community around us, and that we feel that we are valuable and valued in that community as well. And so what we're going to share with you tonight about team time, I think, kind of speaks to both of those areas, that feeling of connectedness and that feeling of value.
Thank you. So, like I said, our major theme this year, because we've really focused on a lot of the training with the teachers and working with the students, our goal this year has been really reaching out to the community, bringing in speakers, offering different types of workshops for parents and community members around Basking Ridge. It was about making connections and about being active listeners, and then kind of knowing what to do with that knowledge when we hear someone who may need help, or when we hear something or someone in need. So we really wanted to think about, and what really makes me think is I have staff members who, our building, we have about 600 kids, and we have about 150 staff members, so not as big as Ridge or William Annan, but we still are a pretty big building, and so we have staff members who don't even know each other, who are on one side of the building and who don't see each other. We have students who they only really know how to mingle with their own grade level. So we were really trying to think about what is a way to build these connections and to become more of that small hometown school feel, because we have so many kids that they live in the same community, but we really wanted to make the school the central hub so that this is a place that people want to come to have fun and really enjoy and feel safe and be able to take risks. So we were looking at the relationships between student to students, students to teachers, and then teachers to teachers. So that's how the whole idea of team time started to originate. And I'm going to pass the microphone over to my first 4th grade student, who is David, and he's going to tell us a little bit about what team time is.
What is team time? Team time is a time for students from different grades to come together and meet each other. We will meet 4 times a year. Each lessons follow a class meeting format with instructions, an SEL activity, and a closing reflection with thoughtful questions. Each team has created their own unique name and silent greeting.
Good evening, everyone. So the lessons. During team time, we get to know everyone through fun activities and lessons. Our first lesson was getting to know you. During that time, we introduced ourselves to each other, students, and teachers. In our second lesson, we listened to a story about filling a bucket and how it applies to everybody's lives. The teams learned that filling someone's bucket means doing something positive to someone else, such as greeting and helping people when they need it. We worked as a team to brainstorm other examples and really got creative with ways to fill someone's bucket. Our future lessons will focus on determination, teamwork, gratitude, and appreciation.
Hi, I'm Zoe. So the benefits. We do team time to connect students and students with teachers. During the school year, there isn't a lot of time where students from different grades can socialize with each other because grades are kept separate. With team time, students from all grades and classes, K to 5, can socialize, have fun, and form new friendships. There are 3 to 4 students from each grade assigned to a team, so no one feels left out and can connect with someone they know while making new connections.
Why is team time great? Team time is great because it is a way to make new friends in the school community, including to get to know some of the teachers we may have not met before. It is an opportunity for the older students to work with the younger students and become role models, helping them expand their imagination and creativity.
Thank you. And that was Nina, and that was Zoe, and Sean, and David. Excellent. So one of our, as Mr. Pepitone said, one of our areas of opportunity was student voice. And so it's opportunities like this that we're really trying to encourage our student leaders, as well as our teacher leaders, but just to hear them to be in front of all these faces, because as they said, how many people are going to be here tonight? And we said, don't worry. But what's amazing to me is the entire school stops. I don't think anyone can say that. Mount Prospect, I said, if you are in this building, you'll be stopping and participating in team time. There is not one staff member who is not with the group. There is not one student who is not mixed in. So we have students from K to 5, our CBAP programs, no matter what it is, everyone is part of a team. During the first lesson, everyone, they got to develop, they had 2 criteria. They had to come up with a color and they had to come up with an animal. Amazingly, over 26 teams, and we didn't have any repeats. So this is one of our groups. Actually, I think this is Mrs. Zimmerman's group, and they were part of the Rainbow Snow Leopards. And so they have little secret signs that they say hello to each other when they're seeing each other in the hallway. So to see a 5th grader give like a silent little, how you doing? To say hello to a kindergartner, it's amazing because now they start feeling that empowerment, they start feeling that ownership, and guess what? A 5th grader knows me. How cool is that? And then Nina, I mean, you know, you're a little nervous now, but her enthusiasm is so contagious. And to see what they were doing within the classroom, and you see the 5th grader, the arm is around the kindergartner. You see them leading the students into and say, what do you think? How are you? What is your day? How do you want to fill a bucket? It just warms your heart. I mean, Mr. Pepitone and I are running around taking pictures, but you just stop and listen. And to see teachers who don't teach together find each other, communicate with each other, and say, hey, you want to take this part of the lesson? You want to take this part of the lesson? Everyone is part of this morning meeting circle. And it's just been a wonderful, empowering time to build community within our school. And so when Mr. Markarian, wherever you are, he said, you know, I'd love to just have anybody who wants to come and talk about something at our school. Our kids said, hey, can we bring this to our meeting? And I said, absolutely. So I just want to say thank you for the opportunity. And if you have any questions, you want to come visit, our next team time is March 21st. Feel free to come visit. Thank you, everyone, and have a good evening.
Thank you, Mrs. Hosney, Mr. Pepitone. Good night.
Snakes.
Sometimes you just got to know when it's good to get going. All right, so next up, on my right, we have our Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum, Ms. Kristen Fox. And she is here tonight to give us a report on the Ridge High School health program changes, which will be on the screen momentarily for you. So thank you for joining us tonight. I think we have a lot of people that came this evening to hear about this. So I hope you appreciate everything that Ms. Fox and the rest of the administrative team put together this evening.
Good evening, everyone. That's tough to follow. They were great. And I have to apologize. I did put the copies up here on the stage that were for the board members, and I just want you to know that it will be posted, the presentation will be posted online tomorrow morning, so you'll be able to access it yourself. I just wanted to apologize for that. So I'd like to thank the Board of Education for giving all of us the chance to come tonight and speak to you about the background behind our planned increase or changes to the health program. Everyone here is working to provide the best for our students. We might ultimately disagree on what that looks like, but if you take nothing else away tonight, my sincere hope is that you can see the genuine commitment that we all bring to your children. Through these changes, we're acknowledging that there are some things we need to work on, and this is just part of the work that needs to be done. So I've been in education since 1990. I've been teaching I taught social studies for 13 years. I was a district social studies supervisor for the past 10 years, and I've been the assistant superintendent of curriculum and instruction since August. In addition, I'm the parent of 5 children, 2 who are still in high school and 2 who are in college. So I do see this issue as both a parent and an educator. I meant to say what our objectives are for tonight, just in case you're not sure. We're here to explain the rationale for these decisions. We hope to be able to give you an overview of the current program, as well as what we hope it looks like by making these changes. And then at the end, we hope to address some of the concerns we've heard raised so far. Getting a little hungry. So in this past decade that I've been at Ridge High School and in Bernards Township, I've watched as we've undergone significant changes. I really don't want to overstate it, but at the same time, I don't want to understate it. But we think and we know that we're a district in crisis. As a high-achieving, affluent community, we see that our students achieve tremendous success. They're outstanding academically, athletically, in the arts, and so much more. Like tonight, they continually amaze me with what they can accomplish. But these statistics on the screen tell a very different story. Statistics can be difficult to report and explain. We can't really report everything due to confidentiality, and the meaning can vary depending on your perspective. For example, the fact that we are seeing an increase in students seeing student assistant counselors could be a sign that we have a lot of struggling students, but it can also be a really good sign that they're starting to feel comfortable with speaking to someone. But it's clear we've seen an increase in anxiety, depression, suicidal tendencies, suicide, opioid and other drug addictions, school phobia, school refusal, just to name a few. We exceed the national norm on achievement, but clearly the achievement is coming at a cost. Make no mistake that the tragic events of the last few years have shaped us all. Suicides and accidental deaths, including overdoses of our graduates, have absolutely caused us to look inward and to question how we can do better for our students as they face this changing world. So when you ask us why we're making these changes, this is why. The decision-making process is lengthy. This has been in the works for at least 2 years, if not longer. It's been discussed in committee meetings. It's been reported out in public meetings. And as I said, this presentation will be shared with you tomorrow. 3 of those presentations are linked to this page. So I would encourage you to look at them. They are some results of our trends in mental health, some reports, and in those there are recommendations for what we should do with our health programming. We've heard from parents in various settings, including strategic planning, including board meetings like this. Through the surveys we've taken of our students, recommendations of the Ridge SEL Committee, and recommendations from the Bernards Township Health Department. So I mentioned the the Bernards Township Health Department. In October of this year, the Student Stressor Survey was shared at a board meeting. And I'm just going to review a few of the statistics and recommendations that were made in this presentation. About 1/4 of students indicated that they feel too much pressure to do well from parents. Half of the students indicated that they get support from teachers, and about 40% indicate that they feel teachers really care about them. 25% of our 10th and 12th graders reported feeling sad a lot of the time. These are some of the reasons. So about 25% of students indicated a tendency toward acting impulsively. Further, about 5% of students report that they've been bullied at least once a week or more. These responses indicate that students continue to engage in increasingly in risky behaviors, risky behaviors. So you see that 68% of 10th graders and 77% of 12th graders believe that half or more of the students their age get drunk at least once a month. 12% of 12th graders report that they rode in the car with someone their own age who had been drinking. And they believe that 30% of the drivers were drunk. So at the end of this, the health department made some shared some implications and made some recommendations. I'll just point out a few of them. Additional attention to the student's emotional well-being may be worthwhile. At the end, they think students might be receptive to learning ways to strengthen their ability to look before they leap. With regard to drinking and driving, they thought communication about designated drivers, approaches for taking keys from drunk drivers, making arrangements with local taxi companies might be things that we wanted to share with students. So that survey was part of our thinking that went behind some of these changes we're making. In addition, the committee that looked into this does a lot of research into other districts' programming. A couple slides here you can look at later. You'll note on the left I've linked to those schools' program of studies so you can look a little bit more at some of the offerings. Schools are required to provide 150 minutes a week of health and physical education, but they can choose how they want to break that up, how they want to divide that. You'll note that some schools do one marking period of health each year of high school, but there are variations, some providing more than one marking period in specific grades, while a few providing multiple marking periods in all grades. Other things, though, that are important to consider when looking what other districts do are things like the structure of their academic day, the way in which they do or do not allow option 2 as an offering. And at West Windsor-Plainsboro this morning, just as an example, we learned that those students are required to take a study hall all 4 years. It's one of their 8 academic periods. So it's hard to compare, but it is part of our research and looking around at different best practices that can help us shape our own programming in our district. So there's a couple of pages that show you what some of that district, the programming is around the state. One in particular, one of our presenters will be discussing later in the presentation. So at this time, I'm going to let Mr. Kraus take over.
Thank you, Ms. Fox. Good evening, everyone. Drew Kraus, principal here at Ridge. Yes, we did go to West Windsor-Plainsboro North today with a group of students, teachers, myself, Ms. Fox. It was pretty revealing, interesting. We gathered some good data as part of this. But before I get to any of that, I think it's important to understand one of our district goals here. This is sort of the 20,000-foot view. Strengthen the ability of the staff to promote social, emotional health and well-being outcomes through staff development. So from the 20,000-foot view, this is something that we've been focusing on since I've been here, and that's probably just under 2 years. In asking back when I first got here is what has been done here not only to help students but our staff. If you take a look at this screen on the left side, there seem to be a litany of things that were presented here over the years, going back, I don't know, 10, 12, 15 years, that have dealt with social emotional issues. Some of them, I'm told, were successful, some of them not so successful. My feeling is that we should never stop trying. That's why last year I got together with the counseling department and our school student assistance counselors to create a school-based social emotional learning committee. We did some research, we gathered some data, some of which that Ms. Fox has shared up here on the screen already, and started brainstorming about what can be done based on what has been done in the past. As you can see in the past, there's a whole group of things that have been done, including assemblies, certain trainings, surveys, wellness clubs, and anti-stigma clubs that I've worked with closely here at the school, guest speakers, testing, voluntary random drug testing. Moving forward, we have tried to focus on this district goal. We're in the process of expanding freshman transition into our building. You might see some of the Aspen e-blasts I send out about the therapy dogs coming to our school, and I'm going to be honest with you, it's been quite a hit. Our kids really, really enjoy it, as do our staff members. Working on a chill zone or a relaxation room for students. Again, master schedule. Tomorrow we'll be making our way down to Montgomery High School where they have a day 1, day 2, more traditional block schedule. We've made changes with Ms. Smith and Ms. Fox in the counseling timeline for students to add, drop courses and make requests. We're implementing non-binding teacher recommendations, feeling that the teachers have a good handle after sitting and working with students for the better part of 10 months to give a valid recommendation for where they think that student should be appropriately placed. Again, non-binding but optional. We're exploring non-weighted dual enrollment courses with RVCC. I can't speak to the elementary gifted and talented program, but there's some review going on there. Middle school health, as my understanding, has increased. And of course, WAMS and Mount Prospect have both partnered with the United Way. I think Ms. Hosany was up here explaining that as an initiative to help our students. We have a staff wellness day planned for Wednesday, hoping weather permitting. But we've done a lot with a lot of local organizations for our staff for their own mental health and well-being. So these are things that we're continually working on to further that district goal. Now, these are some of the other ideas that have been thrown around because there are a lot of ideas out there. Nothing is binding, please understand that. But I think the point is that this is a continual process that we engage in through research, through speaking to people out there, to try to develop programs for our students and our staff. And that may be anything from peer tutoring we've talked about, establishing homerooms. There's been discussion about unweighting courses. There's been discussion about increasing the number of mental health professionals within our district, student wellness center here. Obviously, infusing social emotional learning throughout our curriculum is one of the things that we will endeavor to do. But these are other ideas, again, that we are exploring for the benefit of student and staff. So this is something that, as you can see, we're putting on something called distress or eustress, and we'd like to invite anyone who's willing and interested on February 27th to WAMS in the auditorium to talk about healthy stress, because not all stress is bad. So it's a presentation we're doing, and there's a 3-part series, month apart. One is effective study habits to follow, and then debunking the college myth, which I think will be pretty interesting in and of itself. So these are some of the programs we're putting together for parents as well. Before I turn this over to our phys ed folks, as I saw the young students up here from Mount Prospect giving their presentation, I couldn't help but think that, in 4 or 5 years, they're going to be walking through our doors here at Ridge, and we really have an obligation to create the best program for them that we possibly can. They deserve that, and they should expect that from us. So I think part of this is us always trying to improve and get better, because we have an obligation to those students so that when they walk through this door, they are grounded, they are well-adjusted young adults, and that they know we are here to help them and we care about their well-being as much as anybody. So beyond that, I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Shello, and I thank you for your time. He's going to speak about some of the curriculum. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Krause. Yes, my name is Rich Shello, and many of you know me as the Director of Athletics, but under that umbrella, I'm also responsible as the Supervisor of Health and Physical Education K-12. So it's my pleasure to share some of our things here tonight with you in the direction that we would like to see things moving forward. So a little bit on the rationale for our curriculum updates. Looking at this slide, if you, down to the third bullet, 2015 through 17, we had an emphasis and a change in our curriculum due to opioid and increased drug, alcohol, and tobacco education. This again came through the increase in the presence of opioids in our society and in our community. Suicide hurt us, and the increased emphasis for suicide prevention in our curriculum again came about the following year in 17-18, including implementing the SOS program, which is a program that is done not only by our teachers, but also at the middle school, and we'll talk about this later, by our student assistance counselors and visitations into the classrooms. And lastly, this year, our district goal of social emotional learning, which you've seen in 2018, and our movement forward in that area. And lastly, meeting the ever-increasing demands of our state mandates, community needs, new materials, and new trends in an ever-changing field of health education. I truly believe health and wellness education may be the singular most important course of study offered to students. We don't teach them just the academic subjects, but we teach them how to live a well and a rich life. Ridge High School provides a quality education for all students. Our students deserve the best in health and physical education too. We are, with strong conviction, we feel we need to provide better health and wellness programming in the best interest of our students. This year, in the same project where the curriculum changes have come about in the high school health education, part of it also was an expansion in the William Annan program, and this has been implemented already. In 6th grade, we've gone from a 6-week cycle course in health to a 9-week marking period course. The same for 7th grade. We've increased the presence of student assistance counselors in presenting lessons, especially in the areas of mental health and suicide prevention. Sad to say, we have to talk about suicide prevention in the middle school, but it's a reality in our community today. Part of the expansion in these grade levels was also because of an increased social emotional learning, instruction units, and lessons to students in all grade levels at William Annan. All right, Ridge High School, our current schedule in physical education and health. Taking a quick look there, you're looking at grade 9, you see that in marking period 1. As you know, students take part in a project adventure course. We feel this is a great course. It brings a lot of understanding of one another. Students learn to accept differences, how to work collaboratively in groups, supporting one another. It goes a long way to get them started into a new high school setting as they become 9th graders. A 9th grader will receive health education the 4th marking period. Previously, it had been the 3rd, and juniors had it in the 4th, and then the conflicts with AP testing and the number of pullouts because of testing just became insurmountable to deliver the curriculum, so that switch was made. As you look at that now, in 10th grade, driver education, 1st marking period. That's the entire health curriculum in the 10th grade. So a student receives no instruction currently in health from marking period 4 of their 9th grade year to nearly 2 years later in the 3rd marking period in 11th grade. That's an awful lot of time, an awful lot of lost opportunity to provide very, very important instruction. Our proposal here, proposed curriculum, is to add a 2nd marking period in Health 10 and Health 11, as you see by the asterisks there. This is one of the models we looked at. This can be adjusted slightly, and it's something that we will look at over the summer when the curriculum is finalized. It's possible that Health 10 could be the 3rd marking period, Health 11 could be the 2nd. We'll see how that best fits. Should note there's no change in 9th grade and no change in 12th grade. All right, grade 9 curriculum. In the darkened side to your left, you'll see what we currently offer. All right, social emotional health, 4-week unit, risk-taking and decision-making, 4-week unit, drugs and alcohol, 1-week unit. The goal here is to spread some of this out, smaller units, more in-depth study that could be done over a course of a marking period. So to propose, you see it's a mental health stress management unit for 2 weeks, mental health suicide prevention, and you'll see the theme of suicide prevention across all grade levels, mental health disorders, risk-taking and decision-making, and you'll see how that in a little bit ties into SEL. And of course, drugs and alcohol, which is mandated to be covered every year a student is in school, 1st grade through 12. Grade 10, current curriculum, driver education. Great course, many students' favorite course. I know as my kids, they couldn't wait to get a license. But in terms of health, what are we getting for them? And you see the proposed or anticipated curriculum with a second marking period. 9 weeks of driver education, followed by 9 weeks again in critical health issues. Grade 11, for many years, and I've been here for 21 years going on, first aid CPR was the thrust of the grade 11. At one time, every student came out of grade 11 certified in CPR and first aid. However, with the increasing demands on the curriculum, we were no longer able to provide that. We now only have first aid CPR instruction for 2 to 3 weeks, and our teachers give up their own time to test kids who would like to go ahead and get certified, maybe for a summer camp job, lifeguarding job, things of that nature. And it's a strain on all. So with a second marking period, this gives an opportunity for first aid, CPR, and safety to be expanded to 6 weeks. And again, you can see the other areas that we would be addressing as well. Once again, mental health, stress management, drugs and alcohol, addiction, suicide prevention, and of course the human sexuality related areas. Grade 12 comes with changes, but it's a change by inserting some new materials, but also putting some in the earlier grades. And I won't go through everything here one more time, but you can see the changes in that curriculum. And as Mrs. Fox said, this will be posted for your review. All right, character education, social emotional learning. Social emotional learning has really come about in the last 10 years. And to tell you the truth, 3 years ago, I didn't know what it was. I didn't really know what it was. And I'm sad to say that as the head of wellness, health, and physical education, how can that be? And what I did learn through study and through reading and through some of the professional development that's been out there, much more about it. It's come about from this organization, CASEL, which stands for the Collaborative for Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning. Definition-wise, it's the process through which children and adults understand and manage emotions, set and achieve goals, feel and show empathy for others, establish and maintain positive relationships, and make responsible decisions. It's not just stress release, absence of stress, it's how to handle my own emotions, how to handle stressors, how to make responsible decisions. Here you see the model from CASEL of social emotional learning. The 5 areas: self-awareness. What am I feeling? Why am I feeling this way? Self-management, learning to handle emotions, budget time, whatever it might be. Social awareness. How do I fit in socially? Where do I belong? How do I relate with others? Which again goes to relationship skills as well. And lastly, responsible decision making. Now if you look at the rings here, the dark blue inner circle refers to the classroom, SEL curriculum and instruction. That's what takes place in a health classroom. The next ring, schools, school-wide practices and policies. What's the culture within the school? How is that culture reinforced? How is it developed? How is it incubated? It's a school-wide process. And lastly, home and community. It's a partnership with the parents, the students, the staff, the entire community that makes a successful and well-implemented social-emotional learning program. We've all had our children go through the elementary schools, through the middle school, and we're very aware, I think, of the 6 pillars of character education, they being trustworthiness, respect, responsibility, etc. These are intertwined and yet run parallel with social-emotional learning, and we think this is of great value to students at Ridge High School, in the school district, and all across the country. Wellness is important. Wellness, in the form of health education, promotes learning in other subjects. In general, and this is from research now documented, in general, healthy students learn better. Numerous studies have shown that healthier students tend to perform better in school, higher attendance, have better grades, and achieve higher test scores. Now, I want to take you a little bit through what happens in a single marking period health class. It was really kind of interesting. When I first saw this, it blew me away. And we've been for a long time with a model of our science labs being interlocked with our physical education scheduling, which means that students are routinely pulled from a physical education class and or a health class 1 or 2 days per week. Imagine teaching a class of 30 students, and on any given day, 5 to 6 to 10 may be pulled out due to a science lab. And it's tough to make that up. It's tough for the student to miss a full day. It's tough for the teacher to track 5 days, who's out, what work have they missed, et cetera, et cetera. So here's a sample. November 12th through January 25th, 1819. 46-day, 10-week schedule, minus the following. November 12th, class organization day. November 16 was a snow day. November 21, December 21 are half-days, shortened class periods. Lab days, 1 day per week, this is per student now, over a 10-week period. So in a 46-day schedule, you're missing 12 to 13 days. That leaves you 34 teaching days to cover that encompassing curriculum that needs to be delivered. "34 days to teach all of these topics. Our teachers are talented, but they're backs against the wall. They're trying to deliver all that. Looking at it in a pie chart here, you see similar that uninterrupted health classes accounted for 70% of the marking period due to all those reasons listed there for absences. Having 34 days comes out to about approximately 24 hours of instruction. And it's generally been stated by SHAPE, which is the Association for Health and Physical Education nationwide, that students should be receiving 60 hours per school year in health education. Now, some response to community inquiry and opposition. We know and have heard concerns about this. This petition was shared with us. It came to us directly as well. We understand that there's a concern and there's a lot of opposition to this planned curriculum. We've had some individual parent communications with myself and some of the other administrators, and have had some great dialogues. Some for, some against, some with sound reasoning, some we chose to agree to disagree. We understand that there's a petition moving forward, and That's certainly everyone's right, but we strongly feel that this is in the best interest of our kids. You know, we're parents, we're teachers, we're coaches, we love kids. That's why we do what we do. And we strongly, again, feel this is the best interest for our children. The proposed changes are not an attempt by health and phys ed teachers, as was directed to us, to save jobs. The changes will not increase staffing needs. Instead, it is our conviction that the changes are in the best interest of students to prepare them for a life of balance and fulfillment in and beyond high school. The benefits of additional relevant education in the fields of health and wellness far outweigh the stress benefit of an extra study hall. And this is Kim, right? Yeah, all right. I'm going to introduce you now, Kim Clark. Kim is one of our faculty members in the high school health and physical education, and she's going to give you insight onto what takes place in a health classroom. Kim?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Kim Clark, as Mr. Shello mentioned. This is actually my 12th year as an educator and as a coach and multifaceted roles here at the high school, everything from being involved in student government to our mentoring of special ed students, you know, to the Project to Venture peer leadership, advisor, co-advisor positions. So while I am a health and phys ed teacher first, please know that I see your students, I see your children in so many different facets of their life. And it every day amazes me at what these students do. And with that being said, when we looked at rewriting this curriculum and when we looked at making changes because of SEL for us as educators, my colleague Barb Erickson and I were really on the, the forefront of this proposal. We looked at not the requirements, not the SEL, but instead, what do our students need? What do our students really, really need? Where are we missing? We're failing them somewhere. We're missing something. And so with that being said, we started looking at the current curriculum and found holes. We found holes in that time between the 9th grade health and then them not getting any type of wellness education, again, until 3rd marking period of their junior year. As most people in this room, I'm going to guess, know and maybe even are experiencing at this time, there's so much growth and development, particularly in their social lives and their mental health in this crucial period. They're figuring out who they are, and they're making crucial decisions that they deserve to be educated on. And we're not standing up preaching and saying, this is what you need to decide, this is the only right decision, but we're saying, guys, here's the information. We're just hoping that you're able to make the best decision for you with this information. And that brings me to my first slide, and it's why wellness? Why is this something that's so important? Well, it's something that's so important because study after study after study, whether it be through the CDC, whether it be reference medical journals, health journals, they're saying that there's a direct correlation between students' wellness. And I'm not just talking physical activity, because I don't think anyone in this room or in this community would deny the benefits of physical activity, but I'm talking the education of wellness. So not just their physical being, but what about their mental health? What about their ability to establish positive relationships with people, peers, adults who truly, genuinely care about them? How about that aspect of wellness that so many of our students struggle with or are missing altogether? So when we say why wellness, this is why we say it. We want the best for our students, for all of our students. We want them to be educated in every domain of their life, because with that, research shows, yeah, they have better academic performance, which is awesome, but they live more enriched lives. Not just as high school students, but as adults. And I know for me, I'm a high school teacher, but that's my ultimate goal. When a kid walks out of this building, are they better than when they walked in? Are they more educated? Are they more prepared for the stuff and all the stuff that's out there? You watch the news and you can link almost every single thing you hear on the news to our wellness curriculum. It is real life stuff. And that's what we want to educate on, that we want to teach, that we want to discuss, that we want to role play to help your students be better prepared. So that's why wellness. And you say, well, where did you come up with this model? Where is this from? Why adding more marking periods of health? Well, like any other aspect of Ridge High School, we look at the best. We go to the best and we say, where do they do it the best? Where is the community most involved? Where is the whole school community, the teachers, the students? Where do they say, yeah, wellness is something that's important, it's something that we need, and it's something that we value? So we looked at Ridgewood. They have over and over again been touted as the best of the best, the gold standard when it comes to phys ed. And of course, it's anecdotally throughout the health and PE world, but then it's also a review from their curriculum, from their community. If you look at their program review, and I know that we have that linked here in the presentation, take a look at how the community and the students, and I think that's the best indicator of a successful program, right? The community, the students, the teachers, everyone is on board, and that's what we're shooting for. We're not saying that we're perfect, but we're saying that just like every other aspect, that's what we're striving for, and that's what we're reaching for. So the nature of a health course, I think it's so important that, just as I mentioned before, we're trying to provide enriching educational experiences for your students. To fit all that stuff that Mr. Shello showed you, that was a senior health curriculum, to fit all of that into one marking period, it's a lot of this. It's a lot of, hurry up, let's get through this because it's in the curriculum. And that's not what our goal is. Our goal is, hey, here's this amazing current event that was featured, this article in the New York Times, let's read through this. Let's, digest this, and then let's break it down, and let's talk about how that can apply to your life when it comes to how you deal with refusal skills, how you deal with depression and sadness. And maybe it's not you that's experiencing it, but maybe it's one of your best friends or a family member. How are you working through that? So that's really the nature of this course. It's discussion-based. It's application of information, not just lecture and regurgitation and memorization and tests and quizzes and exams. That's not what this is about. This is about, let's talk about this, and let's create an environment where you feel comfortable and safe to learn and to take this with you outside of the classroom. And that's what this graphic shows. And I think that there's, it's such a perfect example of what we shoot for in a health classroom. We shoot for learning. And that means that we discuss, that we experience, and we teach each other. We've all been in that arena where we truly learn something because we teach it to others. And that's what I really encourage my students to do. We encourage our students to do. All right, hey, here's this, sample writing piece. Here's this poem. Here's this short story. Let's break this down. Let's talk about it. And why don't you learn about it? And then in small groups, you guys share, and you become the expert, and you share, and now let's all talk about it. And that's what a health class is really about. So a little bit of my teachers coming out here. Let's take a peek, along with the guys from Toy Story, into the health classroom. So I wanted to provide you with a couple of examples of lessons and activities that we've done in the health classroom, just to give you some perspective, and maybe to debunk some of the things that you've heard about a health classroom. So this first assignment, and I do have a sample here to show you, is part of a mental health unit that we do in freshman health. And the way that we start the health unit is actually talking about self-awareness self-esteem and the value of self-esteem and the connectedness to your morals and values, and how when you become connected in your morals and values, how that can then translate into feeling good about yourself. And then how we respond when we feel good about ourselves in every aspect. Decision-making becomes easy, or easier, I should say. So this is a sample letter, and again, it's a letter to self. So I'm just gonna read it to you. Thank you for being such a kind person and evolving into a unique individual. So again, this was a 9th grader. I would like to compliment you on your achievements recently. You're so motivated in running and really enjoy the sport. I love how you give others pep talks so they are more motivated and confident in their running as well. Also, you're the kindest, happiest person I have ever met. You inspire me to think positive thoughts all the time. You're nice and intelligent. I admire how you're a little weird because it makes you unique and intriguing. However, there are some things you can improve upon, as everyone can. I know you have goals in the running aspect. However, I also think you could work on your studying skills. Watching TV while studying is very unproductive. Practice studying in an alternate location. You could also be nicer to your siblings, because then they will be nicer to you. Overall, you're doing a good job. You have some work to do in order to be a better person, student, sibling, and friend. So just giving them a little bit of time to think about this and then to write it down can be really powerful, to take out a pen and to actually write down these types of feelings and emotions and really benefit them emotionally. So an example from senior health, I mentioned the news and current events. I think that we can all agree that sexual misconduct has been on the forefront of all news lately, so it really was something that we enjoyed really bringing to the curriculum in a current way. So students were given articles, and I kind of mentioned that idea of teaching each other. So they were given articles with different perspectives. So some students would read the article and they would totally disagree with it, which was awesome to hear them say, I think that this is baloney. And then other kids say, no, I really like this point in paragraph here. So to talk about it and to learn about it, they created posters about their articles and then got to do a gallery walk where they went around and they just commented on one another's posters. And then we took those posters and discussed the way that people were feeling, why they were feeling that way, and then tied it back to some of the legalities around sexual misconduct. And they actually did some research on college campuses and said, hey, I'm really interested in going, to TCNJ. What's their sexual misconduct policy? So really that, again, taking it outside of Ridge High School. This is a little, actually, this is the participation rubric, and that kind of goes back to the nature of a health course. And this is what I use to grade them. Many of the health teachers use to grade students weekly. So it's active participation, it's listening, it's voicing your opinions, it's asking questions, it's engagement. From the moment that you walk in to the moment that you leave, you're on task and you're engaged. The same expectations that likely other subject areas have for our students and likely you guys would have for your own children. So senior health, additionally, addressing the issue of suicide, and I know that Mr. Shello mentioned that we include it in every marking period, but we do have a different approach every marking period. It's not, the same PowerPoint every marking period and just regurgitating the same information, but rather we try to make it applicable to that stage of a student's life. So in senior health, we actually, as I mentioned, previously, we have them do research. So I say, pick a school that you're interested in and do some research on the suicide resources that are available for you or for a student at that college. And if you don't want to go to college, great. Do some research here in Basking Ridge or a place where you think you might end up. What are some resources? What are some mental health resources if you feel like you're in trouble, you feel like you're struggling, or you know someone who is? So we talk about how to recognize within ourselves, within our peers, and they actually have an opportunity to complete exit slips, which was part of the SOS program, which I think I'm most proud of, because now it's not just, this is how you recognize, and these are some people in the building, but now we're giving you an opportunity to reach out. We're not relying on you to go on your own, but instead we're saying, hey, here's the lifeline. Here it is. All you have to do is say that you need some help. And they put down their name and that they need to speak to a counselor, and we are able to refer students. In the first 2 years of utilizing this program, for myself alone, I've had upward of 10 referrals to our guidance department, to our student assistance counselors, just my classes alone. So it's really been incredible and one of the things I'm most proud of. So I just provided a student sample here of some of the work that they did. This is a poster that one of my students made. I told her it looks like it could already be up at NYU, and then, checked her sources. But she came up with just some great examples, and my hope is that she goes to NYU, and she's like, oh, I remember that crazy health teacher, and she meant, we looked up some resources, and I remember that there was this walk-in counseling. Maybe that's somewhere that I could take advantage of, something I could take advantage of. So that's just an example of one of the things that we have our students do in senior health. Effective communication and social media safety has been a big focus for us as of the past few years with the changes and shifts in communication. Communication now is totally different than it was even when I was in high school, especially when I was in high school. So trying to navigate social media, text communication, and helping our students be effective communicators regardless of how they're communicating. And just starting conversations, just asking questions. Something simple like, how is technology, especially cell phone use, impacting your communication skills? How has it changed? So they talk about, when I text, there isn't that fluctuation in my voice. They can't see my facial expressions. I say, well, what about emojis? Well, there might not be an emoji that describes, and so we debate, like, are emojis replacing body language? And so there's all this kind of back and forth that's relevant to their lives. And then we give them scenarios. We say, hey, here's the scenario. Here is the situation. How are you going to respond to that? We ask them to respond, in a text message. How about as a direct message? And, what about through other means of social media? So those are some samples of just different scenario work that we do with our freshmen. And in junior health, this came about as part of our drug and alcohol unit, which we were able to expand upon in junior health when we cut down on our CPR and first aid portion of the class. So again, we felt that that was a time that was really, we were missing our students that junior year. And perhaps it was partially due to the fact that they weren't getting that health ed sophomore year. But we wanted to put in drugs and alcohol. We wanted to reiterate it. We wanted to speak specifically about the opioid epidemic, and even more specifically about addiction. So with that, one of the most successful things as of last year, I heard about this pretty amazing blog called The Alcoholic Next Door. So from there, I reached out, per the recommendations of some of my colleagues, to a Ridge grad who was the author of The Alcoholic Next Door. So Ridge graduate, and I said, hey, you want to come back to your alma mater and speak to our juniors about your struggles with addiction? So he said, I would want nothing more. And he came, he brought 2 other Ridge High School grads, another recovering alcoholic and a recovering opioid addict who was eventually a heroin opioid addict. The 3 of them came, they talked about their experiences at Ridge High School as phenomenal students, superior athletes, some of the best that went on to play at the next level, and their struggle with addiction. And so we didn't just leave it at that. We didn't then just close the door on that program and say, check that box, but we brought it back to the classroom. We said, give us some writing. What happened here? Tell us about it, journal about it, and now let's talk about it. What parallels did you feel, did you see? And it created some really powerful, really meaningful, I think, connections for the kids to see someone who once sat literally in some of our classrooms, I think, no offense, some of the same desks that, you know, those speakers sat in. So it was a pretty powerful discussion and a way to make it real for our students. Additionally, I've included here, just in closing, just some of the student feedback that I received from my seniors this marking period. And I thought that it was just so telling, and I'm not going to read through all of them. That's certainly something that, if you're interested, I'd encourage you to do, because this is the student perspective, and this isn't a student perspective like just not wanting to do work. These are students seeing value because of teachers and a community and administration that sees value in wellness. And that's really the bottom line, is that we care. And above all, that's it. There's no other way to explain it, to describe it, but we care, and we want the best for all of the children that are part of Ridge High School. And that's it.
So where are we and where are we going? Our plans right now are to finalize the course revisions during this summer in anticipation of the September of 2019, hard to imagine. To implement the health curriculum and the infusion of the New Jersey SEL competencies, again in September. In addition, to conduct a review of our current physical education curriculum. I think a big, as you'll see listed there, a big piece of that is in moving away from the high school from a individual and team sport model more into an area of wellness. A major emphasis as well will be a partnership with the high school with our counseling department and our student assistance counselors with the health and physical education departments to implement more initiatives in student wellness. As I mentioned, develop greater focus in fitness, wellness, lifelong activity in health and physical education at Ridge High School. And lastly, professional development for our staff to provide the best in education to our students. I encourage you, and this is more on a physical education side, take a look at this TED Talk with Paul Zentarski on a cutting-edge program was done in a suburb similar to ours in the Chicago area. And it's really telling on what wellness and fitness and things of that nature can do for academic achievement. I thank you for giving us the time to share our program with you. We think it's a wonderful plan and has a lot to look forward to. So once again, thank you very much.
So I guess the last thing we wanted to kind of put out there is that over the last week or so, we've heard from several people, some in support and some who are not in support of this change. And we just kind of wanted to highlight a few of them, primarily saying to you what I think Mr. Schello said before, that as we go forward, it's our plan to listen and to address as many concerns as we can within the constraints that we're operating. So for example, some concerns have been with the lack of one marking period of physical education. And so certainly one of the parts of the program evaluation in physical education could include looking at adding electives in physical education and making those available to students who were looking for more opportunities to take physical education courses outside of the requirements.
Yeah, I mean, with that, the idea of, this was a struggle for us, and the idea of losing a period of physical education activity to be in a classroom, for those of us who are physical educators, there's a real fine line there. What is the proper balance? We felt presently with the needs that our students have, that this was the best way to go, that we really needed to address these new needs of, the social emotional, the drug, alcohol, opioid things, suicide prevention. These were critical issues. The idea that some of these may turn into lab-type courses that would be 2-3 days a week in a classroom with a piece in the fitness center, on the track, whatever, where they can apply the concepts of fitness learning into actual practical purposes.
Right. The second bullet talks, I've heard of people worried about the stress of additional work. I think Ms. Clark did a pretty good job of addressing that. That's not our goal. And our intention through the curriculum writing and through professional development would be to, and with the time that we will now have, to expand our opportunities for meaningful instruction, for dialogue, for role plays, and things beyond that. And it is not our intention to add additional work and additional stress, but to provide opportunities to explore these subjects. The loss of a study hall for students with option 2 is certainly a consideration that, again, Mr. Shello said we weighed, we balanced. We know that some students do benefit from that time. And we also recognize that students do have the opportunity for another study hall, and that the need for health education for us came down to being more important at this time than that one marking period of study hall. So I think the main point I'm trying to make is that these concerns were brought to us, and I'm sure we are always open to that dialogue and working on addressing as many of the concerns as we can. Anything else? We've linked a few resources for you to look at when I post this tomorrow, and I think that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Board members have any questions?
I just wanted to say thank you to all of you for putting in all the time and hours and to put this presentation together. You guys really covered a lot of ground. I had a whole sheet of notes, and you guys covered, I think, everything. I have one question regarding study hall. Obviously, we've always had the ability to add a study hall to any, year. Students have the opportunity to add a study hall for one marking period, right? If their sport is in the fall, could they request that their study hall be in the fall? And then have a half-year elective the other?
Marking period elective?
I mean, yes. I meant semester. Semester.
For a semester?
Yes.
Yeah. For a semester, half year, yes. You can have
So
a semester
they
of
can do
study hall
that. So they can
balanced by
request a
semester
first.
elective. Yes.
First semester or second
Right?
semester study
Yeah.
hall.
It has to be balanced, right?
Right,
So you have
right. So
semester
you would
of
have
study
something
hall
the
with a
other.
semester.
I mean, you
of
can
an
have it the whole
elective.
year,
Sure.
but you can also request
Correct.
a semester.
You could.
Sorry, I was confusing
No, that's
everybody. And thank you.
Okay.
That was my same question.
Okay.
This does not preclude anyone from putting a study hall into their schedule.
No.
I said this does not preclude any student from putting a study hall into their schedule.
No, it does not.
So in the proposed curriculum for 11th grade, we would be adding an additional marking period of health. Was there some reason when that 11th grade was chosen as to kind of double up on health, like when you looked at, I guess, Ridgewood, or based on the curriculum that you're planning?
So the
is
reason
that
for 11th grade?
Yes. So the question
There's
was,
a reason.
why in 11th grade are we doing 2 marking periods as opposed to 10th grade or senior year or something?
Well, we felt for 2 reasons. The 2 grades, 10 and 11, would have basically 2 marking periods of health, drive red and a health in 10th grade. We already at the freshman level have a project adventure course locked in for 1 marking period, and then they have 1 marking period of health. So we didn't want to add a third to the third locked in marking period for the freshmen. At the same time, senior year, we felt by then we've got everything covered. And seniors are ready to move on to college, and they've got their college application process and all of that. Probably not the best time to add another course, another marking period.
There's also CPR and first aid in 11th grade, so we wanted to potentially, sorry.
Right here.
Okay. So in 11th grade, there's also that first aid CPR component, which we really had to cut down. And as Mr. Shella mentioned, the actual certification is now optional. So by giving us 2 marking periods, that also gives us a little bit more time, in-class time,
to add more practical application of the skills. So actually being able to practice those first aid skills in a little bit more depth than just, what we're currently offering. So a lot like 10th grade, where there's already like a set curriculum of driver's ed, there was that component of health and safety that didn't necessarily target the issues that our community, our demographic was struggling with. Does that make sense?
So in the proposed system or scheme, the juniors will now get certified in health and CPR?
We'll have to see. We'll have to.
Still be an option.
American Red Cross has increased the cost of it, so the students have to pay now for that. Years ago, we were able to provide that free of charge.
But they are going to spend more time in class on it, preparing them for it,
Yeah,
whereas
more
now
just
it's
like
optional on their own time.
Because honestly, the practical exam then comes down to us, reteaching them practical skills and then trying to certify them all in the same time, because we just don't have time to squeeze it all in. Right. Yeah.
Just board questions right now. You can ask questions later.
Thank you for this very thorough presentation, and I'm excited to hear about a lot of the ideas that you guys have for these courses. I had a couple of comments. So some of the stuff we've heard, like when we met with the students at Ridge, they're looking for more interaction between grades or mentoring, and people have come up with like ideas of things they wish they could do, but there's no time in the day, to make it happen at Ridge. So I think it's kind of cool because you'll have the opportunity maybe for some cross-grade stuff if 2 different grades have health at the same time. You could do some kind of program like that. That you wouldn't be able to do right now. So I like the idea that you're taking input, and we've had a lot of emails from people with creative suggestions about what could be done now that there's enough time to actually do it. So I think it's great, and if you can incorporate as much of that kind of stuff. A lot of the concerns we've heard is, more sitting at desks as opposed to PE isn't good. But this class has a lot of opportunity for other activities that don't involve sitting, you know what I mean? Right. And, traditional academics.
Yeah, and I just want to mention, along with that, we kind of played around with it a little bit with senior health this year, and actually took our senior health classes to the gym, and we did a yoga day where rather than being in class, we were talking about mental health, and we were actually talking about fitness and coordination with that, and we had a fitness lab style where there were even classes where they came up with their own fitness routine, like a progression of activities, like circuit style. So that's what we really envision that would be optimal. Let's not just sit them in seats, but let's make them active learners. Let's get them out of their seats and moving now that we have the ability to do that a little bit more time.
I just want to get some clarification. I'm pretty sure I understand it. So the option 2 that some parents have questions in terms of academics has not, like if you take an internship or you do a online course, has never been tied into receiving an extra study hall. And the availability to be able to take the option 2 academic is not being touched. Oh, no. It's a completely separate thing. So the option 2 study hall is simply for 2 reasons. 1, you participate in a team, so you are eligible to have a study hall, or you do off-site, and so you're eligible for study hall. Okay, I just wanted to make sure that
it's not related to the academic option.
Okay, that's what I thought. Thank you.
So a lot of these topics are very exciting, but when parents are worried about, the stress of giving up that option 2 study hall, we've seen the curriculum, but we haven't seen the lesson plans. And I think that you alluded to some professional development. Can you talk a little bit about what's coming, what we can expect? If they're going to give up this study hall that people so want, how are we going to be guaranteed that it's going to be worthwhile?
I mean, that's our job. No, the writing of the curriculum is going to be finalized this summer in much more depth. The last summer was outlining the topics, beginning the research, exploring the resources that would be used, gaining some initial approvals. That work will continue this summer. as well as identifying professional development that would be put in place going forward. So we would be happy to come back and talk further about it unless you already have some ideas.
The writing of lesson plans is something that's done by teachers. That's ongoing, you know,
but
month to month, week to week. So to say we can get the lesson plans to you now, that we don't have yet. But the curriculum spelled out in more detail, yes, that will be done over the summer.
Connections, you mean? Yes, certainly there are opportunities to reach out to, I think you mentioned some experts that you know and bring them in, or to Ridgewood and other schools that we know, and look for opportunities for teachers to experience some professional development as well. So that's definitely part of the plan. I don't have a list of those for you right now, but we certainly will, because they require your approval.
No, I mean, it sounds really exciting, and I can, you know, the passion that you're showing through your conversations and the curriculum and the stuff that you gave examples of sounds really awesome, and I think illuminates for us, rather than our students coming home and saying, health sucked, you know, so that's really interesting, so thank you.
I'm a huge, I want to kind of reiterate what Robin said. The idea that you can incorporate movement into whatever the face of the new marking periods look like, I think is terrific, and not that it should be exclusively that, but that there's an opportunity for a combination or a change of scenery, any of that. But I also, in the presentation, and I know you asterisked it, the idea of the possibility of swapping the two marking periods, I think is appealing for some obvious reasons. The fact that you've already been, as a sophomore, in 9 weeks of driver ed, and then you're going to sit for another 9 weeks is maybe not perfect. And I know there are some trade-offs, but I'm really hopeful that the schedule and the other constraints can permit that as you know, a possibility.
Yeah, we've discussed and rediscussed and moved it one way, moved it another way numerous times. There's just, you know, as you dig deeper into it, there's just so much to balance. You know, the idea, and I think it's less impactful on the 10th grade because the completion of driver education and the start of a health course is very different, and those can be spaced at different times. The 11th grade, where the idea of it's a semester curriculum, so now you're going to stop halfway and come back to it a marking period later. That was one of the challenges that the committees struggled with, and we're still struggling. This isn't finalized in terms of what marking periods, and that's something we would certainly take into consideration.
At the risk of sounding a little glib, the kids take Algebra 2, and then they're off for the summer, and they come back and they take another challenging math course, and they manage. So I'm going to hold out a lot of confidence in our kids that they can manage if it means that there's some, you know, consideration to the other aspects.
Definitely, definitely.
Give me a sec. I'm also assuming that part of when you write curriculum is that you go through the 4 years and say, you know what, this isn't timely, this isn't right, it's not developmentally appropriate, it's antiquated, and you'll be pulling those things out that may have appeared this year, but you're going forward. That's number one. Number two, is there a way, the seniors now will have been through 4 years of this, to go to them and say, hey, what did you like? What would you recommend, you know, we really keep? What do you think, not so timely, not so important, and get their input?
I agree. I think Kim showed earlier the post-survey that she did in her classes, information that we get from the students as a senior. Very, very helpful, very insightful, but it certainly can be done.
Okay, so I read all the letters and some concerns in it. A couple hit a raw nerve with me, and they were saying how they believe that introducing this class at this age is useless because, you know, by the time you're in 10th and 11th grade, you know, the ship sailed, or that teaching these strategies to sophomores and juniors is way too late, which personally I totally disagree with. I mean, I haven't given up on my 19-year-old yet. You know, so I feel like these kids can, but, you know, you're the professionals, so you tell me, and you tell the audience or whoever wrote these letters that it's never too late to help our children, to teach them something that they could really use in the future. So that's something that really, it bothered me that they wrote that. And if I had that attitude on the Board of Ed, my God, okay, why not? Let's make it a free-for-all. Everyone can do whatever they want. I mean, honestly, it's just a bad attitude, and I just think our kids deserve better than that.
And I think that message is heard earlier. I think if you looked at the middle school health curriculum, the areas of drug, alcohol, suicide prevention, decision-making, mental health, it started then. It's even carried through, and it's something that
It's never too late.
we need to be reinforcing year in and year out.
Never too late, and you saw with the kids here this evening that there is a lot going on at all levels. There's a lot of work to be done for all grade levels, so not just the high school, also the middle school and the elementary schools. We have a lot of work to do to help our kids. I do see a lot of hands up. We are going to take questions when it gets to that portion of the meeting.
Okay, at this point, we're up to superintendent's report. We have items 1 through 4. Would someone like to make a motion? Mrs. White and Mr. Salmon. I think, does anyone have any questions about these? Any board members? Okay. You want to speak?
Sure. Just by way of explanation, we have a couple of standard items with some overnight field trips to approve, and items 3 and 4 for forensics, and the 8th grade trip to Washington, D.C. that's annual in the spring. The first 2 items, one is the Uniform State Memorandum of Agreement between education and law enforcement officials. Each year, the Board of Ed has to agree to enter into this memorandum. There were a couple of additions to the memorandum this year, one of which the board has already taken care of with respect to the live streaming of video. The board might remember that as part of this new memorandum, there was going to be a requirement that if the school district had cameras in the buildings that allowed video to be live streamed to off-site locations such as the PD, there had to be an agreement for how the PD would be allowed to access the information. So the board has already executed that agreement, but that is probably the most significant material change in addition to the Uniform State Memorandum of Agreement. So I just wanted to highlight that, and of course, annually the board approves its committee assignments. So those are the other items.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Marcari. Does anyone have any questions before we vote? Okay, can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Byrne? Ms. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mrs. Gray?
Yes.
Mr. Salmon?
Yes.
Mrs. White?
Yes.
Mrs. Richmond?
Yes.
Mrs. Korn?
Yes.
Mrs. McCune?
Yes.
Madam President?
Thank you. Okay, we're up to public comment on agenda items. I just wanted to reiterate what I said at the beginning of the meeting about how we do public comment. We let everyone come up and give their comments or questions, and then after I close public comment, then we will try to respond to any questions or comments that we feel we can respond to at the moment. Obviously, we're going to hear what everyone has to say and take all the input. We have a lot of people here tonight. Normally, we try to limit people's comments to around 5 minutes. If you could possibly keep it shorter, if you're able to, that would be great, because I know a lot of people want to say what they want to say. And I know there might even be some students here who don't want to stay all night, might have to do homework. So if somebody says something that you wanted to say, you could stand up at the end of their comment or applaud so that you can show your support. Or if someone asks the same question you were going to ask, then we will try to respond to it afterwards. So I'm not trying to limit anyone from speaking, but try to be cognizant of that, I guess, if you can. Okay? So at this point, we'll open public comment. When you come up to the microphone, if you could, after you introduce yourself and tell us your name and address, you can speak, and then afterwards you can sign in on the clipboard. That's more efficient, I think, time-wise. So make sure you tell us your name and address before you start talking. Thank you. Okay, students don't have to tell their address. You can just tell us your first name or whatever.
Hi, my name is Maddie Athanasiou. I am a current senior at Ridge High School, and with the beginning of the second semester, I have just completed senior year health. So I've been through the ringer. I've been through every single health. I've been through driver's ed. I've seen it all, basically, and middle school included. I've turned out okay, I think, but I'm sitting here and I'm listening to you guys talk about implementing new health policies, and I had Ms. Clark as a teacher. She's an awesome health teacher. All my health teachers have been awesome and engaging and helping me sort of see the world in a different way and that kind of thing. Like, I appreciate it.
But we can't hear when you turn that way. I think the audience can still hear from the mic.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Can you guys still hear when she's facing this way? Okay, because the way sound system is.
So, but this year in senior health alone, we spent, I think it was like 3 days watching a movie from 2004 about a girl who had intercourse too early. And I'm sitting here wondering, is this really benefiting me? It is outdated. I'm not getting any new information. What I did in senior year health was I memorized the symptoms of gonorrhea. I'm questioning the effectiveness of the health courses that are currently implemented right now. And if we really need to implement an entire another marking period of this, of watching movies from the late 1990s of how kids are doing bad things that maybe kids aren't even doing right now, or maybe they're doing different things. Like, we didn't talk about juuling. That is a huge problem. They shut down our bathrooms because of juuling. We didn't talk about that at all. And I do not mean to bash the health teachers in any way, or the people that even write the curriculum. I think, I don't forget who said it, but including the seniors in writing the curriculum, you are going to get the most current, the most modern voice. And no offense, but as a senior, I think that we're going to voice our voices. We're not scared because we're graduating. And we want to help our peers. We want to help our little sisters, our neighbor. We don't want them to get addicted. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that kind of thing, that is going to be effective. But I don't think we need a second marking period of it. I don't think you need to take away our study halls and piss off parents and all that stuff. I think you can make it effective with one marking period, 34 days or whatever it was. And then my last thing was the parents. I learned, obviously, my huge life lessons and, the character molding moments from my parents. They were the ones that educated me, and maybe I helped educate someone, or one of my friends educated me, and it was because their parents gave them this life lesson. So if we could find a way, I know it's not necessarily a school's job, but to just get the parents involved, to educate them, for it to be more of like a community effort, that is going to impact the kids so much more than making them sit down in a chair and listen to how Tina from 1990